It's lovely to see so many of you. I'm Janeen Hayat. I am Director of Collective Action here at the Fair Education Alliance. And this is the launch of our 2025 report card. So today, what we'll cover is a bit about our strategy. Hopefully, you all will have seen really excitingly, we're hot off the heels of launching our new strategy entitled Neighborhood to National. So we'll put this in the context of this is one of the first steps in our new strategy, one of the first things that we're doing together. Then I'll give you an overview of Fair Education 2025, England's report card. And then we're really lucky to have two of the people featured as case studies in the report card here with us today. Please do put your questions in the chat because we want you to really feel like you feel comfortable with the content in the report card and feel some ownership over it. So we'll try as hard as we can to answer as many questions in the chat as we can. And if not, we will pick those up with you separately after this session. So without further ado, I will turn over to Sam, our co-CEO, to tell us a bit about our strategy.
Hello, good morning, everybody. It's brilliant to see everybody this morning. So I'm delighted to, alongside Gina, be framing today's report card launch as part of the wider strategy launch that you will have seen last week. So last week we launched our Fair Education Alliance Neighborhood to National strategy. And this report card, as Janeen said, is the first key element that we're kicking off to start delivering that, which is really, really exciting. And it forms a really critical part of our collective voice work. So how we're going to take action together and start making changes for the children and young people that we need to see in the system. So we're going to take 10 minutes to just talk you through the headlines of the strategy before Janeen then takes you into the report card. So we are, and you are, 300 members of the Fair Education Alliance who work across the country from cradle to career, making education fairer for children and young people from all backgrounds. And what makes us special is the work we do in cross-sector collaboration from charities and social enterprises, businesses, trusts and foundations, policy people, and education institutions themselves, and our trusted relationships. That means we can drive impact and make change that we can only do together and that we wouldn't be able to do alone. Just next slide. And we're united behind this really clear vision that we want no child's success to be limited by their socioeconomic background. And what that vision looks like in practice, next slide please, is we are aiming towards our 5 fair education impact goals. And we've had these for over a decade now, but you will have noticed this year we've made a couple of changes. And what we want to see at a societal level, and importantly, the work to achieve these things goes beyond our alliance, but we play our part as well, is firstly, the gaps in development at age 5. So those early years, the inequity at that level, we want to see those gaps close. Academic attainment, the gaps at end of primary and the end of secondary, we want to see those gaps close. We want to see inequity in well-being and essential skills, gaps 3 and gaps 4. And then finally, in destinations after school, education, employment and training. And we have had over 10 years of report cards. And this year we've made a couple of tweaks to this, which we have seen in the impact in the report card and also our strategy, that we've added that early years one, the development at age 5. We've separated out well-being and essential skills because of the importance of those and the differences in our work to achieve that. And then also the amalgamated the destinations after school to give equal importance to all destinations when before it was on university access. So we're going to talk about the report card and the way that we report against these impact goals. But first, Gina's going to talk about our strategy. If we just go to next slide, and the role that we play in moving towards those societal goals as an alliance. So our strategy is from neighborhood to national, and the essence of it is that we believe we need to address system change and the barriers that are holding inequities in place, not just tackling the symptoms, but those root causes. So Gina, over to you to explain a little bit more about our systems change approach and what we're going to be doing collectively to address it.
Great. Thank you so much. And hello, everybody. So hopefully this framework is familiar, but if not, I'm going to take 1 minute to whiz us through it. The water of systems change, inverted pyramid on the screen right now, has been the framework that we have put at the foundation of this entire strategy process. That is that systems change is shifting the conditions that hold the problem in place. A significant undertaking to make sure that we are working ourselves as an alliance secretariat and hopefully the work of our members out of needing to exist, because our work is really about getting underneath and addressing those root causes. We love this framework because it has been really simple, as simple as it can be, to apply to our work. And so it has structural, relational, and transformative change. Those are the 3 different layers. And the 6 conditions that need shifting on the top layer around structural change are the policies, local, regional, national government policies, but also thinking about policies from other institutions or perhaps even businesses. Thinking about the practices, the what we do day in and day out. Where are we working? Who are we working with? And the resource flows. Who has the money? Where is it going? And under what restrictions? This can be both government, it can also be around philanthropic money. A layer beneath that, we have the relational change. And that's the relationships and the connections. Who has a relationship with whom? To what extent are those trusted relationships? And it's also about those power dynamics. Who has the platform to have their voice heard? And are people aware of the power that we hold so that we can wield it or shift it as needed? And finally, at the very bottom layer, the mental models, the transformative change, that if we hit this, will impact on the mindsets, the behaviors, the assumptions that individuals hold that can have a ripple effect across those other layers. How we think about the work at the FEA is the work collectively of all of us will shift that structural level, will shift the policies, will shift the practices, will shift the resource flows. And how we do that is through the relational. And we need to do the really deep work to address those mental models collectively as well. So that's how we framed it. And so what does it mean? What does it look like for you as members? We can go to the next slide. Neighborhood to national is rooted in cross-sector collaboration, the absolute core of why the Fair Education Alliance exists, and in trusted relationships that underpin that collaboration. We have 3 core strands to be able to drive change together. The first is collective voice. That's part of the work that we're here for today, to shift policies, but also to shift mental models. And so we're really excited that we get to build on and strengthen the policy influencing work that we've had over the past 10 years as we move forward. And I think we're equally excited to launch work showcasing the stories like we've done through the report card, showcasing the lived experience of young people to be able to shift that public perception. So collective voice about shifting those policies and those mental models. Collective action, this is twofold. This is the work that we can build on around thematic collaboration, and in particular focusing on early years, literacy, and jobs for tomorrow. So uniting our members to take a systems change approach and drive change together thematically. And also the new work which we're launching for place-based collaboration. uniting our members in collaboration with combined authorities and the schools and businesses and young people within those areas to have that place-based plan for change and take that action together. And then underneath all of this is collective strength. This is the work that we have done through our awards to date. And we've heard from members that you would like a lot of the support that we have provided to a small cohort. So we are delighted to share that we are offering the support for improving systems change leadership across the organization and to ensure we've got a strong and impactful organization to all members now. This looks like a leadership development program for staff from entry level all the way through to execs and trustees. And it also looks like the working groups one-to-one support and the ecosystem app to help you do that work. Two golden threads that are woven throughout all of this. The first is youth engagement. You'll know this work from the FEA, whether that's from our summits, whether that's from the Fair Education Youth Summits, or having the young people as the voices within policy. That thread is woven throughout. So ensuring that the voices of young people and their experiences are embedded in collective voice, action, and strength. And the other golden thread that we have is around AI and technology, recognizing the importance and the impact that AI and tech can and will have on exacerbating or improving the gaps in outcomes for children and young people from low-income backgrounds. And we want to make sure it's the latter. And so tech and AI are going to be embedded across those three strands as well. So last week, Fair Education Alliance members, you will have received the bulletin last Wednesday with the information about the different changes and all of the key areas to get engaged. That includes getting us to one of your upcoming team meetings or offsites, reading through our new member guide about what you can get in the offer and also what you give as a member. And also the invitation for one of your senior leaders or CEOs to our Fair Education Summit, where we'll be going into this and seeing it in action, all that we've already achieved over the course of the next 3 months, which is happening on 8th of December at the Science Museum in London. For anyone who's not a member on the call, we went live on Friday, so hopefully you'll have seen the strategy. And if you'd like to attend the summit, then please do just get in touch with us. We'd love to hear from you. So I will hand over now to Janeen to delve a bit more into collective voice and a bit more into the report card, one of those key components.
Thanks. So as Gina just said, this report card is one of the first steps in our new strategy that we're taking together. And it's really focused on the policy, resource flow, and mental models part of that pyramid. But we have been publishing a report card since 2014 as our State of the Nation on Educational Inequity. And this is where we monitor our collective progress towards our 5 impact goals. And it's also where we present our clear collective recommendations for how we believe the government can make more progress towards closing those gaps. You'll all know that the government gets so many competing and sometimes misaligned messages from across the sector, and the report card helps us speak with one collective voice. So this year we've drafted the report card based on a broader range of data than ever before, and some of our asks are about how we'd like even clearer, more consistent, holistic data. But input from so many of you in our membership has been critical, and you've given that through our policy insights group, our working groups. Many of you came to drop-ins that we hosted in the spring. And so hopefully all of you who did take the time and energy to feed in, see your expertise and your experience reflected in this document, because we really want you to engage with it and find where our collective recommendations overlap with your organization's own policy work so that we can be united together. So I will hand over to Jane now, who's going to take us through the impact goals.
Thank you very much, Janeen. So I have the pleasure of spending a few minutes showcasing where we're at with our Fair Education Impact Goals in 2025. It's worth noting that this data is sometimes a year or 2 years old just because of the amount of time it takes to process the data over the years. So our first impact goal, as Sam mentioned, is closing the gap in development at age 5. This is based on the good level of development, which is a measure used to benchmark in early years and as children enter school. And we've drawn this data from the Education Policy Institute's research and the government's own data. And the gap there is the equivalent to 4.7 months of learning. Or another way to look at it is that 51.5% of children from low-income households achieve a good level of development compared to 72% of their peers. So that's a significant gap that we're still looking to close. And this gap is sadly widening. It's gone up 2% from the previous year and is up 12% from pre-pandemic levels. So this is an area that really needs attention. Next, we have closing the gap in academic attainment. So we measure this at the end of primary school after SATs and at the end of secondary school after GCSEs. Both these gaps have reduced slightly by percentage points in the last year, but it is still much wider than it was pre-pandemic, and you'll see that theme has been a theme for a while. So that's the equivalent, roughly, of pupils from low-income household at the end of primary school being about 1 academic year behind, and by the end of secondary school being about 2 academic years behind their peers. Next, we come to closing the gap in wellbeing. This is one of our new gaps, as Sam mentioned. We're putting a spotlight on wellbeing because England's young people, 15-year-olds specifically, in the OECD research has shown that England's young people have the lowest levels of wellbeing in the OECD. So the gap that we have here comes from the research conducted by the Children's Society that highlights that 1 in 6 children and young people living in households in financial strain had low life satisfaction. But those living in households not in financial strain, it was only 1 in 10. So it's almost twice as much. Okay, then we're moving on to number 4. So closing the gap in essential skills. This research is hot off the press from Skills Builder Partnership. And what we have there is a 7% gap in essential skills between pupils from low-income households and their peers. So essential skills such as teamwork, problem solving, communication. This over a lifetime leads to lower wages, more challenging to access employment, lower job satisfaction. And so we really want to see that gap being narrowed as part of a bigger picture for a lifetime of success. And then our final goal, which is also a kind of recrafted goal, is close the gaps in education, employment, and training. And within this, we look at university access. So we have a 20.8% gap between those from lower income households and their peers. We have a 3.3 grade gap for those who are in further education, so college settings, between those from lower socioeconomic backgrounds and their peers. And then our kind of headline is they're twice as likely to be not in education, employment, and training, which has serious consequences for life satisfaction and life success as they go on. So with all of these, you can see that there there are gaps, there are still real challenges that we need to come together collectively to solve. Okay, thank you. I will now pass back to Janeen.
Thanks, Jane. And I think we can see from that the enormity of the challenge that remains before us. And as you'll see from some of the conversation in the chat, there's also lots more nuance that we can bring to that. We're presenting headlines today, but if you have a read of the report card, you'll also see really alarming data about the gaps for children with SEND or persistent disadvantage and some of those other vertices. But despite the enormity of those gaps, we also are all here because we believe that there is something that we can do about it. And so the second half of the document that we're launching today is what we think together we can do to make progress on this. So you've just heard from Sam and Gina that our new strategy is neighborhood to national. And throughout the priorities I'll take you through shortly, you'll see a theme of stronger connection between localities in Whitehall, stronger collaboration between sectors, and a more holistic consideration of the challenges facing children. You'll see a bit of that holistic approach reflected in how we've refreshed the impact goals, and I think you'll see them in the recommendations that we're putting forward as well. You'll also recognize some of the themes from our previous fair education priorities. And I think although we've seen some instances of really great progress in the last year, we've seen an expansion of free school meal eligibility, and that's something we asked for previously. We've seen the progress on a unique child number. That's something we asked for previously. We've seen investment in family hubs, but many of the biggest challenges that we identified still remain now. So we're not going to invent new priorities where actually we just need to double down on what we wanted to see and acknowledge this is a long-term project. So please do put your questions in the chat as I go, because I want you to engage with these, please. So our first priority is to make mission-driven government a reality. And I think the root causes of the gaps that we've just seen lie outside of the school gates largely, and they stretch across sectors. So families, children, young people, they don't think or live in terms of government departments, and the challenges they face don't exist in isolation of each other. So we were really pleased to see when this government came in that they took a mission-led approach. And as I said, we saw some first steps that were really positive in the last year. But we would really like to see a reaffirmed commitment to those missions. And to deliver on the missions, we need systems, processes, information, and capacity to enable that effective collaboration across departments and across each stage of a child's life. So we are part of the Our Wellbeing, Our Voice coalition, and we're asking for a national wellbeing measurement program. That's a really cross-sector, holistic source of data. We're also calling for common outcomes across public services, and you'll hear about common outcomes in one of our case studies later on. So if we could go to the next priority, please. Our second priority is to support the education workforce in underserved areas. And you'll remember that we highlighted the workforce as a priority last year, and it remains a priority. And this year we've zoomed in even more specifically on the challenges facing teachers in underserved communities. Because for those teachers, the job is more complex, it can be more stressful, and their work is often less recognized. So we need to address the drivers of low teacher well-being in those schools while continue to meet the diverse needs of the pupils who attend them. So you'll find in our recommendations things like mobilizing the power of support staff, supporting people from low-income communities into teaching, and bringing parity to college teacher salaries as well. We go to the next, please. So the third priority is preparing young people to contribute to tomorrow's world. So you might have heard it on Radio 4 this morning. Actually, we all will have been aware of how AI is changing the world of work. And simultaneously, we know that young people will soon fully participate in our democracy as 16-year-olds get the right to vote. So we need to get in front of this a bit more as a system and prepare young people to participate in the economy and democracy that they'll soon enter. So part of what we're calling for is equipping schools and the workforce with the technology and the expertise to deliver a modern curriculum. But we also know essential skills are crucial for young people's ability to adapt to change. So those skills, along with citizenship and democratic education, will also help equip young people to fully participate in our democracy. So it's both that ability to participate in the economy as it's evolving, but also to be really active citizens. Okay, and then our fourth priority. Our fourth priority is to universalize inclusion to meet all pupil needs. So currently, our education system is failing to meet the needs of too many children. And by needs, I mean academic needs, social needs, emotional needs. And we're seeing lots of symptoms of this that are framed as independent crises, right? The attendance crisis, exclusions, special educational needs, the mental health of young people. Each of those crises are exacerbating inequalities, but at the root of it is whether our schools are meeting the needs of the majority of young people. We believe that every school and trust can be a place that the vast majority of children belong, and that schools need support and the incentives to do that. So many of our asks in this chapter are ones that we've adopted from the Who's Losing Learning Coalition, which is led by a group of our members, and their current Inclusion for All campaign, of which we are a part. And that campaign is one of the first opportunities for all of us to put our asks into action because we're seeking to influence the school's white paper being released this autumn. Okay, so that's a whirlwind tour of our recommendations, but please do read the detail in the actual document and reach out to discuss what's in there. But I would love to move along to Roz French, because on our website, you'll see 4 brilliant case studies that illustrate these priorities. And Roz is featured in one of these. She's the Assistant Director of Commissioning for Children and Young People in Hertfordshire and West Essex. And she's going to speak to us a bit about their use of a common outcomes approach. So over to you, Roz.
Thank you, Janeen. Thank you. So in our case study, you'll see that we talked about our local partnership and how we've applied a common outcomes approach. So that's what I'm going to be talking to you about today. So our partnership includes local leaders from health, early years, education, social care, community and voluntary sector, but we also have representatives of the child and family voice as well. So our partnership has a really simple shared purpose. So we aim to drive forward real system-wide change in the way that we work together to improve outcomes for children and young people. So to do that, we adopted the Common Outcomes Framework, and this provides a structure for collaboration or collaborative efforts towards achieving common outcomes for all babies, children and young people. Our partnership developed a local approach to the 5 pillars around safe, happy, healthy, learning and engaged. And that provides us with more of a shared language that's helped us move from those probably more siloed conversations to more strategic collaboration by giving us a kind of a common lens to view our work and structure on which to build on. I like to think of it, or often think of it, as like a jigsaw. So each organisation, service, partner holds a piece of the puzzle. The Common Outcomes Framework acts as almost like the picture on the box of the puzzle, and it helps us to see how all our puzzle pieces fit together, where our gaps are, and how we can connect more meaningfully together. And of course, when we do, the image that emerges is one of a system that is more joined up around those needs of the children and young people. So since embedding our framework, our board meetings have really transformed. So instead of just sharing general updates, we now focus our sessions on a particular outcome area. So our members of the board have volunteered to be champions, and they lead the discussions in their specialist areas. They encourage partners to bring insights and into what they're experiencing and help us discuss some of the real kind of meaty issues. It gives us an opportunity to learn, but also to collectively problem solve and explore opportunity to move forward together for greater impact. And this itself seems to have had a real ripple effect back into our respective areas and has been really, really powerful. One example I'd like to share is how our partnership is really, and this framework is really evolving our family hub model into being more of that real family hub network. So moving beyond that single building into a more connected ecosystem of places, spaces and services all working together. So by mapping all our support and service level outcomes against those 5 pillars of happy, healthy, learning, engaged and safe, we're working towards making services more accessible, less fragmented, and being more responsive to families. So I think ultimately, if we think about how that common outcome framework really makes a difference, it's really helped us shift from being reactive to that being proactive and more engaged. I feel that, and the feedback that we've had from members that we're asking better questions, we're listening more deeply, we're acting more collectively. And for our children and young people of West Essex, that means we will be working towards a more joined up system to support them in having the best start in life, to thrive and to achieve. I'm just going to finish by just expressing my huge thanks and appreciation to all my colleagues in West Essex who have really helped us get where we are today with our partnership. It's made a huge difference to how we connect across the local system and our vision for the future. I also want to say a huge thanks to Elaine Fulton for introducing us to that Common Outcomes framework and for giving us that guide in the right direction. So thank you ever so much.
Thanks, Roz. I think it is just so helpful to see what integration looks like on the ground when we say join up of services and we say more time capacity for collaboration. It's just really inspiring to see that actually is achievable and it's happening in different places in the country. So I'll now move us along to our next speaker, Kathryn Thompson. She is head teacher at Percy Main Primary School, and she's here to speak a bit on our 4th priority, universalizing inclusion. Percy Main has taken a whole school approach to inclusion. That's a phrase that we use a lot in the sector, whole school approach to inclusion, but I think we don't always know what that looks like in reality. So Kathryn, welcome. Over to you.
Good morning, everyone, and thank you for inviting me here this morning. Our school is in North Shields. We're quite a small one-form entry primary school. We've got 40% of our children on the SEND register now, and our pupils classed as disadvantaged is higher than the national average. And I've kind of identified 3 areas as to why a whole school inclusion offer has been important to us. And we were finding that our SEND support, the way we were doing it, was just becoming really quite unmanageable and not effective for the pupils. We were having an increasing number of children identified with social, emotional, mental health needs, children with ADHD, ASD on the pathway to a diagnosis, and an increasing number of children with complex trauma. We had many children who were academically able and could access the curriculum, but the learning environment and the skill set of the staff at the time wasn't right for those pupils, and they were failing. At the time, I wasn't head teacher. 6 years ago, I was SENCO and I was class teacher here at the school. And I kind of almost dreaded getting a report from outside agencies and taking it down to staff with a whole other list of recommendations that we needed to implement for a particular child, and it just wasn't working. I was finding that children were bouncing between interventions. They weren't accessing the whole school offer. I also found that it was too much pressure on particular staff members, particularly our teaching assistants, and that if the expertise isn't across the school, it was kind of down to that one person, that teaching assistant or the Senko, to have all of the knowledge and wave the magic wand and try and fix everything. And that just doesn't work. We were also finding from our children and from pupil voice that we did that our SEND children were really quite resentful of the support that we were offering, even though we thought we were doing the right thing. They didn't want to be seen as different. They didn't want to be removed from the classroom for interventions. There was quite a lot of shame around that. And for our non-SEND pupils as well, they lacked that understanding and compassion for their peers. And so when they saw the children being removed, particularly for some therapeutic intervention and support, they were saying to us, well, why are they behaving in this way and getting to go out of the classroom, not do their work, and do all of the nice things and have the treats? So we knew we needed to do work with our whole school community. So where we started, because we have to start somewhere, and we decided that had to be CPD for our whole staff team based on the priorities that we had. I think that has to start with the SLT. The senior leadership team really has to take ownership of this so they can plan the CPD and they can support their staff. I do think Senkos need to be part of the senior leadership team and be really highly valued within the work that they're doing, because it's not an easy role to have. We started with training for staff around relational practices. That included the zones of regulation, a lot of restorative work and practices, trauma-informed practices, and then we put our behaviour policy, we just threw that out and we rewrote that with the relational policy, which has just become more and more embedded each year that we've done that. That has definitely worked for us. We also invested a lot in the learning environment to make that work for our pupils. So all of our classrooms have a little space carved out as a regulation area. We've thought about our learning environment from a sensory point of view, so that the tools and the resources are in the classroom for the children to use. And we do see them using them appropriately and effectively so that they can quickly regulate if they're having a tricky morning, if something's happened. So we're seeing less lost learning time. Children are able to get back to the learning quicker. And because we've found that the children now have increased empathy and understanding of the peers, they don't see that shame. There's no shame in being different, because that's something we really celebrate now. So there's a lot of kindness we see from our pupils. I think one of the bigger differences that we've seen is the staff and the way they speak and interact with the pupils. That's definitely been a huge change for us. So where we rewrote our inclusion framework, what we saw over time was that a lot of the provision and strategies that we had as a tier 2 approach, as a more targeted approach, a lot of them have moved down to our universal offer. And that's improved our offer for all children, because we've now been able to identify some children that previously would have been missed because everything was happening outside of the classroom rather than within it. So I would summarise by saying it really has transformed our school and our provision, and it has improved outcomes for all of our pupils.
Thank you so much, Kathryn. It's incredibly inspirational, and kind of similarly seeing how making those types of changes are achievable, that we just need to kind of spread what's working and clarify what would make at a national level it easier for schools to do the kind of things that you've done in your school. So congratulations on the great work you've done, and thank you so much for joining us. I would like now to have a few minutes for everyone to absorb and reflect everything we've spoken about. And I'll just put a link to the actual report card document in the chat. Hopefully you've all gotten this by email at the end of the day yesterday, but if you haven't, you can follow that link. And I think we'll just take a couple of minutes for everyone to think about the priorities, think about the impact goals and where we're at. And then I would love to take a few questions from the audience, or just feedback on what you are kind of keenest to take forward together with us. So we'll have couple minutes, let's say 3 minutes of just reflection time, and then we'll come back for some questions. Also, while you're opening that document and having a read, something I think we would really like you to do that would be really powerful is all play a role in sharing this far and wide. So we're also going to put in the chat the LinkedIn post and the Blue Sky and Instagram posts as well that we would love for you all to share. We would also love for you to share this link with colleagues in your organization because there's probably one or two of you on the call right now. But I think these recommendations or our work together is relevant beyond those of us just in this virtual room. So please do share it far and wide. But in this couple of minutes, we did this last year at the summit. I don't know if anyone remembers, but it was really powerful. It made quite a splash. So if you could, right now in this time, while you're getting the document open as well, just go into LinkedIn and Blue Sky if you're on Blue Sky and share those, please. Okay. Hopefully, you've all gone away and posted that on LinkedIn, and you've gotten the report card open so you can just have a look at that executive summary and the snapshot of the impact goals. And I would love to take a few minutes to ask if anyone has any questions now. And it could be questions for Roz and Kathryn also, because we have such experts on the call. Bye, Emma. But would love to give you the opportunity to dig into anything or to highlight anything that you think resonates with what you're doing as an organization and you're really excited to take this priority forward together. Okay, so hopefully that means it's crystal clear. But what I would love is just to hear from some people. We cover a lot of ground in this document. I would love to hear some people put their hands up and come off mute and jump in with which of these priorities, if any, or which of the impact goals that we're working towards do you feel really aligns with something that you're trying to do as an organization as well, that you're really excited to take forward with us together? And Sean, I'm gonna pull you off mute. I would love to just hear you ask that question.
Sure. Sorry, it's slightly long. So really liked that provocation about the fact that we kind of work in these silo crises, attendance crisis, SEND crisis, autism crisis. I suppose I'm doing a bit of self-reflection here as an organization, as a member, saying, how much are we part of that problem, first and foremost? Like, we all make noise on particular things that matter to our theories of change. So to what extent are we part of the problem? Interested on the FEA's here with that. And because you've been through this really quite rich and rigorous process of reevaluating the strategy, how can we potentially take some of that learning that you've been on to put in our own organizations to help us not be as big a part of the problem, if that makes sense? I probably made that question sound way more complicated than it needs to.
No, I think it's a great and the most basic question. It's basically about like how do we do collective work and how do we incentivize ourselves? How do we push ourselves to not just prioritize the thing that is most obviously beneficial for the thing we care about most? And I actually think that this is like one of the benefits of the FEA as an organization, that if we can help our membership see the benefit of some of the longer term, more holistic policies we're pushing for, the benefit of those in to what we're all trying to achieve individually, then we can kind of take some of the reins of leadership in saying, come with us to advocate for family hubs, for inclusive classrooms, even if that's not what you do day to day. But I also think that it's there's an element of everyone pushing themselves to consider that question that I know Gina has posed to people before. What would it take for you to not need to exist in 10 years'
Yeah.
time, in 20 years' time. And if you're genuine about not needing to provide the service you're providing that adds a lot of value right now, I think it's a very brave choice. So I'd love to hear other member feedback on that, or what is difficult about that, or what feels right about that to you. And Jill, I see that you've put something in the chat. Diet and access to green space underpin health, well-being, and attainment. And I think we would absolutely agree that the natural world is critical to all of us, but also there's income inequity in access to the natural world. I guess I would also love to think about how thinking beyond just access to green space and the natural world, which is your bread and butter, kind of what other elements of the system could help or hinder that. Is Jill still on the call?
Yes, I am.
If I could, sorry, force you off mute. I would like if when we're thinking about how the curriculum, for example, helps or hinders that, how school funding helps or hinders that, how the way the incentives teachers have helps or hinders that. I suppose, like, how do you see connection in what you do to any of those other broader elements that you could maybe bring in other members who don't work directly on access to the natural world into that push for that access?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think a lot of it is about, particularly in disadvantaged areas, seeing teachers as gatekeepers. The opportunity for children to even go outside, to go beyond the school gate, is very much in the hands of teachers when those opportunities don't exist at home. And we know that a lot of teachers have grown up in urban areas. They don't have that confidence to introduce and connect children with the natural world, even to support children on diet, cooking skills, healthy choices, because it's not part of their lives either. So I think there's a lot that can be done to be increasing teachers' confidence and competence to be that bridge for children. So quite a lot of the work we do is supporting teachers to take those first steps in the first place, and seeing the impact it has on their children's engagement with learning back in the classroom. We've had we've slightly reframed our results framework this year, and what we're seeing is much more evidence that children are able to make those connections between the first-hand real-world experience that they've had with us and their learning in the classroom, whether it's about parts of a plant, habitats, history, all sorts of things where children are able to say, oh, I saw that, I understand now, maths, literacy. They've got something to talk about, something to write about. So I think it just underpins everything in the classroom. We're also, we don't have high hopes for bringing about big changes in the curriculum, but what we're trying to do is to bring out more guidance for teachers in the one bit of the curriculum where food and farming appear, which is in design technology. Again, to try and give teachers more to hang their curriculum teaching on. We're also long-term looking to join the dots between health, education, environment, because there are opportunities being supported in DEFRA, for example, that schools are not taking advantage of.
Yeah, I was going to say that a lot of what you're saying, I think, does come down to also different elements of the system working better together, as well as there being kind of a broader curriculum that leaves more room for experiences and for schools leaning into what their young people need, because that is part of what engages children in school. That feeling that they are getting a real skill, something of value to them, something that keeps them coming back as well, and something that feels quite meaningful to them. So I think although your perspective might be a specific one, I think we can see how it links to a lot of the broader priorities of other people in the room as well. I just wanted to and perhaps before I go back to Jane with Tom's comment. So thank you, just highlighting that thinking about outcomes first, and then the activities that all of us are doing to support those is kind of the thing that joins all of us together when we think about these impact goals. And even why do we have these impact goals? So that no child's success is limited by their socioeconomic background is kind of what underpins all of it. So I'm gonna hold everyone to task for a moment here, and I'm going to switch back to Jane to share those links again for everyone to share on LinkedIn and Blue Sky, because only 10 of you shared it. So please, if you haven't shared, do take a moment now to share on LinkedIn and on Blue Sky.
My thinking, Janine, was that I was like, maybe everyone has comms officers and they forwarded it on to their comms officers to do the posting. But if you feel like an empowered individual who can post directly yourself, please do take the opportunity now to do that. And if you want, if you are a tech savvy individual, we have a QR code on the screen that will take you straight there, if that is your bag.
Thank you, Jane. And I think what I would just love to end on is that sentiment from Sean, right? Like, we are the traffic, if you remember that from the summit last year. The like, how can we challenge ourselves to rise above the very important work that we're all doing day to day to present that unified vision and voice of what we all want to see. And so I think I'll leave you with that to engage in our collective asks, but also engage with us as a team as you read them. We would love to hear from you, to hear what you're doing that aligns, to hear how we can link you up with our team or with other members so that we're all pulling in a similar direction. So please do share, please do read it. And please do look out for your invitation to the summit on 8th of December, because we would love to see you there and continue the conversation there, because this is where we're kicking it off. But then we'll go to party conferences, we'll have our summit on 8th of December. And so all along the way, we want to keep having those conversations and pushing it forward together. So thank you so much for your time today. Thank you so much, Kathryn and Roz, for those brilliant presentations. And hope to see many of you very soon.